Her superpower is helping intuitive women go from being stuck, drained, and frustrated to soul connected, confident, and clear as fuck so they can create a life that is aligned with their soul. Jen is also obsessed with the online business freedom lifestyle and showing other lightworker boss babes how to do the same. After spinning her wheels for years, taking random courses, joining too many groups, and looking for the magic formula, she learned that getting a coach, keeping it simple, and knowing who you are and what you want is the real secret sauce. Since then, she has had fun building multiple businesses online, including a psychic reading and coaching business and a large network marketing team. Other than being a badass light worker, Jen loves living by the ocean with her husband and 4 children. I absolutely love that bio, Jen. That is fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm absolutely thrilled because I find you equally as awesome. So thank you so much.
Yeah. So tell me, like, how did you get into this?
Into the readings?
Into the work that you're doing. Now, I know you said you were taking like all of these different courses, you were joining all of these groups. What made you decide to kind of go forward? How did that path kind of emerge for you?
So reading cards was something that I did back in my 20s. When I took a course on angel card reading, and I was I'm from New England, and at that time I was fascinated by Salem, Massachusetts. I would go there, and I loved the New Age shops, and there was so much of that there, that energy in that whole community. So I just dove in, and I loved reading cards. And for some reason, I just turned away from it. Like I just all of a sudden just decided, got distracted by other things, and sort of forgot about them and put them away. And I'm not sure why. So instead, I started focusing on building a business online because at that time, I had gotten divorced, and I had been a stay-at-home mom for years and really didn't have, as far as I was concerned, skills to bring to the marketplace that were recent. And besides that, I was used to being at home with my kids, didn't want to leave them. So I tried to dive into online business, which at that point translated to me in like the late 90s as, network marketing, because I'd been to all the candle parties and the pampered chef parties, and they were all over the place at that time. So I started diving into that and learning as much as I could. And I found myself having some success, but there was always, I felt something missing. Like this, it felt like I was going through the motions and I was doing something to do it because other people were doing it, other people were having success, or I liked the products, I liked the people I worked with, but there was just some soul missing. There was some sort of alignment, which at the time I didn't call it alignment, now I know, but at the time, just something that didn't feel right. And as the universe would have it, when you ignore those little feelings and those little nudges, it will get louder. So eventually, it was 2017, I found myself very sick. The doctors didn't know why. I was having trouble breathing. I was losing weight rapidly. My skin was just turning a really sickly color, and I was sore, tired, all these things, and no one could figure it out. And it took a couple months to finally determine that I had Lyme disease. No bites that I knew, like it just, a mixture of Lyme disease and mold poisoning from an house we were living in, an antique farmhouse. I didn't know. So I got really sick, and as I'm sure this story comes up a lot, where you get sick and like it slows you down, you're done, and you're kind of forced to be with yourself, and you're to really just think about what's important. So at that time, I remember this specific day where I was so upset because I was just starting to get some momentum in my business. I was doing a makeup business at the time, and I was like, what the hell? Like, I'm actually like starting to get going here, and you're smacking me down. So now I couldn't go live. I couldn't do anything. So what? So I finally just did that whole surrender, and without realizing what it was, I just said, I give up. What? Like, what do you need me to do? Whatever you say, I am here. And I was sitting in a window. It was wintertime, and I was sitting in a window because I was having some trouble breathing, and the cold air felt good. So I had my head, against the window, and I was looking at the trees outside. It was like beautiful, like Christmassy, fluffy snow, and it was really pretty, and it was so quiet. We lived in sort of the woods, and I just said, I looked out, and I said, I don't want to miss this. I don't want to miss any of this. I don't want to take any of this beauty for granted ever again. I don't want to die. I want to still be here. I feel like I'm not done. Please, I said, whatever you need me to do, I promise you this time I'm listening. Even though I'm out preaching personal development to the world at the same time, I said, wait a minute, I guess I wasn't practicing what I preached enough. So I'm here. What do you need me to do? And it was like a voice I just heard this voice that just said 3 things. I needed to trust, like the surrender and trust. I needed to start listening more than talking. And I needed to show up and serve. But didn't say how, it was very vague. Like just show up and serve. I was like, okay. So that was the end of that. And I just was sort of sitting in that window, just the tears coming and just, okay, like I had this experience and I let it go. I said, okay, I have no idea what you mean, but I'm going to let it go and just do what you say and listen. Yeah. A week later, I was starting to feel a little better, and I was starting to go through some boxes that were in my room. And I found my angel cards and my tarot cards that I hadn't seen for, probably like close to a decade at that point.
Yeah.
Wow, this is really neat. I was like, so I just kind of brushed them off and I pulled them out and I started playing with it. It was like, what if I go live and do this? Like, since I can't really do makeup, it turned out because of me being sick, I was allergic to all kinds of products, including selling. So that was out. I'm like, what if I have, a great community still? I want to serve them. What if I just do readings live? What if I just do this? And that was it. And so I started going live, doing readings, and it just took off and it felt right. Like it just more than just, it felt right. I was like, I am here. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so that was the start of the reading business. So that's how I got started with that.
That is awesome. Like, honestly, my heart right now just feels so expanded because I feel like so many people go through that journey of just kind of going like, what the fuck am I doing? What am I going to do next? Universe, give me a sign. And you had the answer all along, but sometimes it takes all of those kind of kicks in the face to help you to access what that actual answer is for you and to feel the magic of what that is.
Yes.
That is absolutely beautiful. So now, because you're coaching people now, you're continuing to do the readings, which I had a reading from you for 2020, and it was absolutely fantastic. I just absolutely loved it. But on top of doing the readings, you're doing coaching, and you also do these different boot camps.
Yes. So I am also a Reiki master. So I do Reiki healings, distant healings, and I do coaching for both one-on-one coaching and group coaching programs for women who, I have 2 of them. One is Reclaim 2020 Boot Camp, which is starting very soon in mid-May.
Like very soon.
In a few weeks, which is awesome. And it's basically a 4-week intensive on shadow work. So if you feel like you've been stuck, you've been held back by something, your own beliefs, or you don't even know what it is, you just feel like you're stuck in the same place, all the same kind of crap keeps happening in your life over and over again, and you can't get out of this pattern. This is a great program for diving deep and figuring out, okay, where do these limiting beliefs start? Where do these beliefs start? Where do they come from? And then releasing them. I have meditations and exercises that I go through with the women in this group to release them. So identify them, release them, and then we get a strategy for going forward. So it's not just like, oh, you release them, we'll see you later. It's like, I actually help women to rebuild their confidence, and then we offer clearing meditation and then a plan to go forward now that you're more empowered and you're living in your true self without all the carrying the weight of all of the old stories. You form this new life, and this is how this is how you do this. And I give support for an extra month. So if people have questions, they can come back and check in, because it's not easy work.
Absolutely.
Come back sometimes and knock at the door of those old stories. Whenever, just when we're starting to break through and up level, they're like, hey, wait a minute, I'm not going to
got rid of one, here's a couple more for you to deal with.
So that's, so I really want to support people, especially now, because we're all in this state of reflection. That's all we have to do right now is sit and reflect and go, oh shit, like all the fear and things. When we're in a fearful situation, this is prime time for all the old stories to come back and haunt you. Try to take you down that spiral. So that's why I'm doing this now, because this is the second round. We did a first round in January. It's the second round, and the women really had some wonderful, beautiful breakthroughs in the first session. And so I want to give that to more women now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because even as you were talking about your own personal breakthrough back in 2017, the stuff that you were talking about and that you were experiencing, I'm like, that's really what a lot of people in the world are experiencing right now. You know, this is that kind of moment for them. So when you have clients that are coming to you, what would you say is the most kind of dominant experiences that they have had, or the kind of emotions that they're experiencing that you're like, okay, I've got this one, I can help with this one?
Yeah, I think one of the most common things is either feeling lost. So I have no idea what I want for my life. I know I want something. I know I'm meant for something else, but I have no idea what that is because they're so far disconnected from their authentic self, their true passions and desires. Like that's how I was. I remember I had built an entire life. I realized about 37 before I got sick and all of that, that I had built this complete life for myself that was not in alignment with me at all. I just did what I thought I should do. I did what I thought might make my mother happy and, you know, whatever society thought was best for me. Totally disconnected from my intuition. Totally. In fact, I laugh because when I was reading the tarot cards in my 20s, one of the things that I did when I teach my boot camps for psychic abilities, I mentioned this because I was asking the same questions over and over. I find that they didn't work for me like they do now because I was so obsessed with getting my outcome. Is this for soulmate? Am I going to meet the one? You know, you're in your 20s. Like that's all I thought about. Was I going to get married? Was I going to do this? Who was, you know, I was just like, oh, and the cards were like, girl, like stop. Like just stop. I was like manic manifesting. I was in such a space of trying to get control of the outcome in my life when the truth was I was completely out of control because I was disconnected from what I really wanted. I was out of my power totally. So I put the power in the cards and that's not where it belongs.
Yes. Yes, I absolutely love that statement. Yes, because and I did the same thing in my 20s, like those early stages where you keep asking the same bloody question and hoping that you're going to get a different answer. If you ask the question in a different way, it's the same bloody question, you know? And again, it's trying to control what that outcome is. And in that control of that outcome, you already know the universe is not going to bring it to you the way that you expect it to be brought to you. You know, it doesn't get served to you on a silver dish. It's unless it's completely in your authenticity. But even in that, I feel for myself, when there's something I really want, the universe usually has something even bigger planned for me, you know?
Yes, always, if not this, something better. So when things don't seem to work out, just no, it's not this, it's something better. The universe always is in your favor, always. By definition, you can't go wrong. So even though it sucks sometimes and it's painful, just that trust and surrender is the first step, and it's so fucking hard. It really is. Sorry for my language.
Okay. Creator of the bitch slaps of the universe here. So my people are used to swear words with me. It's all good.
So yeah, but that's the first step, and it was the hardest because, and I think it is in the boot camps too, and my clients, it's hard to get to that trust and surrender that the universe really is there for you and working for you, even when it so stinks and we feel like we don't get what we want, or we feel like, you know, things aren't happening in the time frame that we want, or whatever it is. And it's funny because now we're in a place in the world, what's happening, and is that we're so in conditioned to give our power away, and between our parents, our schools, our churches, and the government, like now we're in the middle of this. What do we believe? We're realizing that we put so much power into somebody else's telling us what to do. So my mission as a coach and leading these groups is to help give the power back. Like, I don't want you to look to me as your guru. I don't want you to look to the cards as your guru. None of that. It's, you know, the answers. You have them. My job is to make you not need me anymore. So we're at this the perfect time to kind of like really for us to all experience this, how we have given it away for so long, and we've been programmed with so many beliefs for so long. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that my clients bring, is that they're very programmed to not listen to their inner self. So they feel lost, or they come and they say, I keep getting in these abusive relationships over and over again. How do I cut this shit out? Or they'll come and they'll say, I've had a really tough relationship with one or both parents. When people come to me, the women that come to me, usually it's their mom, like they've had a very overcritical mom or a very distant. So not only reading themselves, but find themselves again, because they've been told who they are is not enough for so long. So yeah, this is big work. And that's what a lot of the common things that I find. And they know they have these gifts too. They know they have these intuitive gifts. They remember being kids and being so connected. But it's like, how do I get that back? So that's what camps for.
Awesome. 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 So can you talk a little bit more about the shadow work that you're doing with this 2020 Reclaim Boot Camp? What is that shadow work that you talk about? I know my perspective, but I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, so it's just the first week we do a really detailed review, like a life review, so we can see sort of where the painful stories come from. I have a couple of exercises and meditations and visualizations that I walk them through, so they can really go back, almost like going back to the Akashic records a little bit, but maybe not, so far into ancestry, but really looking at where those pain points came from, where those beliefs might have come from, what are those events that could be like really like largely traumatic events, or sometimes even smaller traumatic events that still affect us. I mean, the big T, little t, I've heard that said, like big trauma and little trauma. It still can live with us and affect all our decisions as adults. So going back and finding what those are, and I think just seeing them is the first step, like being able to see them and just be able to acknowledge them and remain that neutral observer. The point is not to re-traumatize and go through it all over again. It's to sort of be that neutral observer, just so your inner child can be seen and heard for the first time. And
yes.
Yeah, and give a voice to that inner child. What does he or she, or what does she have to say? And just let her say it. Just let her be there, and just allow her to voice what she needs and how she felt, and be that centered, grounded figure that's there to say, I hear you, I see you. Like, it's absolutely okay. How you feel is okay. Sometimes that's all we were looking for, is just to be seen and heard and acknowledged and validated as children. And then it's a matter of, from there, how do we now release those? How do we release those in a way that feels good to us and feels authentic, not just, I have to release it. Sometimes we're not totally ready, and we have to do this in a very slow way.
Mm-hmm.
It's all individual, but it's releasing those and then forming new beliefs from that.
I absolutely love that, because we actually work in a very similar way to each other with this whole inner child thing and giving the inner child the voice, because I feel like that's the most empowering thing for anybody, whether they're working with you, working with me, or doing the work on their own. It's about giving that inner child the voice that they didn't have a chance to speak up with when they were a child, because that really is, for my own beliefs as well, what starts the shadow self, is all of those different aspects that weren't heard, that weren't seen, that weren't loved, that weren't validated.
Right. And sometimes it's even things that we did that we feel very ashamed of, like things that we weren't proud of in our past, that we hold, because sometimes the shadow can be either thoughts or actions or the words that we said or did or even thought that we find shameful, or that society tells us is shameful. Right. So we have to bring those, your desire, it's okay. It's okay to be who you are. And sometimes it's okay to have those moments when we didn't maybe act in our higher self. Although I say everything is always in our higher self, though. Like you can, we don't want to bypass the whole situation and say, oh no, it's fine, you were acting your higher self. But I want people to understand that you made no mistakes. Like we can regret and live in that spiral of, oh God, regret, and I made all these mistakes. But the truth is, and I know as a parent, I do this with my kids, right? I sit there and agonize over things I might have done and said. But the truth is, my higher self always is driving me. I have to learn what I have to learn. My soul agreed to this. So, I have to stay on the journey and trust the journey. And it's so hard sometimes, but truly that's the work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like as parents, because you've brought this up, as parents, it gives us a lot of space of reflection for ourselves and what our own inner work is that we still need to work on. Or at least that's been my experience with raising my kids, is it's often a mirror that I don't want to look at.
Please. The ones, I think, when my daughter was born, my oldest, she'll be 18 in a couple of weeks, and that really kicked off, I think, the next level of my spiritual journey, which was like, I can't live an authentic life, can I? Like, I had to really call myself out because I can't show this to her. Like, she was so pure. And so, like, you know, that moment when you look at them for the first time and you can feel spirit, like you feel God, like that is the presence of, and I never really believed it until that moment. I was like, wait, there's something greater than me. Like, this is just so proof right here. I had to get my shit together. And it took, I mean, I'm still working on it 18 years later, but I think always working on it. Wasn't like I transformed that moment, but it was the awareness that helped me get on the journey. Sometimes we just have to be aware of it. And
Absolutely.
Spiritual amnesia a little bit and wake. Yeah.
Absolutely. So can you talk to me more about your, the awakened empath? So I assume then that you're an empath.
Yes.
Okay. And you help people who are also empaths.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So what kind of advice, because I know there's a lot of people out there who either self-identify as empaths or have been told that they're empaths. And a lot of people, in my experience, kind of use it as a spiral to go down because they're just feeling so much. So what kind of advice do you give to empaths that are feeling too much or who are too sensitive?
Well, first of all, let them know they're not alone by any stretch. I think it's a help for empaths to know that they're not the only one that feels that way. If they've been told they're oversensitive or hypersensitive or calm down, or they're, you're being accused of being hysterical or bipolar or whatever. And I'm not saying like people don't have that condition. I mean, I think a lot of times we toss around these terms very easily and loosely when you're just a feeling being. That's actually a gift that we were given, is to have these strong emotions, because that is your higher self telling you something. It's telling you something is either in or out of alignment. So trust that, like trust those feelings. So it's giving them the confidence to turn away from what they've been told and know that that's actually a superpower, not some curse. And also they have the ability to manage it. They don't have to be a sponge for everybody else's energy. And anything that happens to them, they can manage that energy. But what I want them to know is that when they become the sponge, and when we go down the spiral, we get drained, it's almost always, I maybe even say always, our own fears. Like that's where the shadow comes out. When empaths get drained and sucked in, yes, there are people who may do this. There are energy vampires and things like that. But I feel like I'm turning away from some of those labels and saying it's really all our shadow. Like it's really all our own fears coming out and like kind of projecting onto our current situation. We're replaying the same situations over and over again. And we're using it as a way to get to our comfort zone, which is, that safe, small space where we're overwhelmed, we're too tired, we can't cope. So I have to go hide in my shell. So that, I want them to know that they're more empowered than they think. And it's just a matter of digging and diving in deep and getting to know, what is at the root, like the shadow work, what is at the root of all of this for them? How can they manage their energy? How can they use their sensitivities as their superpower? And it usually starts with, really realizing all of getting rid of those blocks that have held them back, and those beliefs that they are powerless, those beliefs that they are just out there at the mercy of whatever energy is out there and whatever people want to do, whatever to them, and why they might attract those narcissistic type relationships. There's a reason why. I did it too. I attracted many an abusive relationship before I finally figured it all out. And I was in my late 30s, so I can help anyone do it. So thank you. But it's still, there's never too late. It's never too early, never too late to find your true, authentic, fulfilling life. Never. And I feel like we need to fight for it. It's worth fighting for.
Absolutely. Can you tell me more about the fears of what have you seen comes up for an empath as being the fear that would allow them to kind of soak in? Is it just like a fear of standing in the power then? That's the first time I've ever heard it put that way. And I'm like, that is super interesting.
So do you mean like the attracting different situations that are damaging, or fears?
Yeah, because you talked about how a lot of times it's not necessarily about them soaking it in. It's about them kind of stepping back into these fears and allowing those fears to kind of run. And then that's where they're soaking it in again.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a few things. It can be like, for example, law of attraction, the like attracts like. So if you believe that you are at the mercy of energy, I can't go out because I'm going to go into a large group and I'm just going to be overloaded. Like if you believe that that's true, it will happen.
Yeah.
You will test that. I also believe that when it comes to things like abusive relationships, and I'm not in any way minimizing it or saying it's anyone's fault. The last thing I want is empaths think anything's their fault. That's another downward spiral empaths can get into. Oh, you know, I screwed up. It's my fault. It's not your fault. No. It's years and years of programming and different situations that were traumatic in your life that led to repeating this pattern, attracting people into your life who basically confirm the limiting belief that you have about yourself or the fear that you have. So if you fear that you're not good enough, if you fear you're not lovable, you're going to attract people who show you that you're not lovable. You know, so that's, and same with energy. If you feel like, you know, you're afraid that you're going to be taken over by some evil spirit, or you're going to be, I don't know, how can I explain this? Or that you're very vulnerable, then you'll attract situations that are very intense and like, you know, they will come and just, maybe you don't have the strategies to just be able to manage that, but it's just a matter of learning a few strategies. But I feel like that's what we end up attracting to us is what we fear a lot of times. And we don't think of it consciously. We're not thinking of that.
Yeah.
But it ends up happening. And I think empaths can get into that because most times empaths have been told their whole lives that they're not good enough, or that they're weird, or that they're too sensitive, or that their ideas are stupid or crazy, or they're different. And so I think empaths can feel like a fish out of water as it is. So they're trying to fit in and figure out where they fit in the world, but at the same time attracting those who will tell you you don't fit in, they're not your people, you know, not attracting those who are aligned with them. And so just perpetuating that whole vicious cycle.
Yeah, because sometimes what we'll end up doing is connecting with people that will continue to repeat the story because it's the story that becomes comfortable. We almost put it on as a second skin and don't even realize that it wasn't the original skin in the first place because it's just been what we've been told for so long. And then even stepping out of that, because I know now you're in a good relationship that's different than all of the other relationships. And I'm lucky enough to be in a relationship like that as well. But there's times where it can actually feel uncomfortable because it's too good.
Yes. It took me a long time to train myself out of that. And sometimes I still have to watch out if my husband compliments me or things are too easy, or, you know, not to stir up any drama. Like it's they're ingrained and you have to just be very, very aware of them. But
absolutely.
No, possible to change. That's to know. It's so possible. You can turn it all around.
I love how empowered you are with it because a lot of the conversations I've had about empaths and about that, just the empathic energies and what people are in and stuff, a lot of times it kind of takes the power away. It doesn't make people feel as though they've got a choice in this. It's always, oh, all of these big energies out here. And, you know, we're just these small people with these big energies and big emotions. And it's just never, I've never heard it in as much of an empowered way as what you're sharing it to be right now. So I thank you for that because I feel like it's something that so many people need to hear. And so many people need to know that they are bigger than what the energies are. They're bigger than what the experiences are.
Right. Definitely. Definitely. That's at the end of the day, we were born with the gift of source energy. We're God. We come with that gift that we are a part of that energy. So by definition, we know that God source is all knowing, all powerful, all everything, all loving. So are we. Like at the bottom core, so are we. So I cannot get possessed by any dark entity. I cannot, I don't necessarily need the cards to tell me anything, or anything like that. Like, or I don't need a medium to connect me with a lost loved one because I have every single one of us has that power within already. We're given it at birth. I mean, there's no way to have it go away. So once we realize that just by saying so, just by declaring that we are that powerful, it really can be that simple. It's not, it takes the work and the shadow work to get there, but the raw truth of it, that's really the raw truth. Like you are that powerful. I don't want to absorb that. That energy is yours. This energy is mine. Like,
yes.
I don't have to absorb
I met a woman last year who's a psychic and empath and all of that. And she said the most powerful thing to me. She said, as an empath who walks through the world and picks up on everyone else's energy, it would be no different than walking into a stranger's house, finding all of their dirty underwear and putting it on as your own. And I was like, ugh, that's the grossest thing.
Yeah, no, seriously, I mean, but your eyes on the gift, like the fact that empaths have the ability to feel so deeply. Like when you are talking to someone, you ever talk to someone and you're telling them something you're going through that's painful, and they're like, I know how you feel. And you're like, yeah, right. You know, like you do not have any idea, but empaths truly can. Like I truly can feel what you're feeling. And so I think that's such a gift. This world needs right now that deep empathy and compassion for one another. More than ever, we need empaths to really step up in their power and realize that your sensitivities are a gift. When you're feeling upset, that's your higher self telling you something's not right. What is that? That's guiding you. So, you know, when you feel like you want to make changes to your life, your body's telling you every day where you need to go. Just, you know, tune in and listen. Those emotions are not you losing your shit. Those are your emotions saying, I'm trying to push you and nudge you in the directions that you've been asking to go. I'm here helping you. And it's so cool. Like once you tune into that frequency, you're like, oh my God. Like what was I doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I want to be tuned in. But yeah, it's changes everything.
Absolutely. So how do you help people step into that frequency of being able to tune in?
So it is helping them to do that shadow work first, to really kind of peel back the layers of the onion and find out, where do these things begin? Where does the belief that we're not enough or that we're not powerful begin? Where did that come from? Peel back those layers, work on that healing, and then find yourself again. Okay, so now that I'm clearing some of the air, clearing some of the stuff out and releasing those stories, who am I now? Like, how do I know? I help people find out, what do I really, really, really want that's in alignment with me, not my programming, not my society or my family. What is in alignment with me? And then helping them get a strategy on, okay, so how do I get that? How do I manifest that now? I have to become the person that is matching the frequency of what it is that I want. And that's usually like little inspired actions every single day. And keeping on top of our mindset all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have a comment here from Marie, and she's saying, my son just lost his grandfather, my ex-father-in-law, and his pain has totally drained me today. So do you have any advice for what Marie could do for herself and even helping her son go through this grieving process?
I'm so sorry for your loss, first of all, and for your son as well. So usually when I'm working with empaths in situations like this, I make sure that my empath is putting her self-care first. So that means doing things that you can do to help recharge, because your son needs to go through his grieving process. There's no one right way to do it. There's no time frame for it. And I have had clients come to me who are grieving because they lost really close loved ones. And they like, what do I even do? Like they put pressure on themselves to heal and get over it. So I say, you know, they have to go through this process and this journey, whatever way feels true to them. So what she can do is just be that loving space without absorbing to the point where she's drained. So it's, how do I become that loving space where I don't get consumed by it? Well, make sure you have your spiritual practice and your self-care practices as your priorities. So you're meditating. If you don't already, meditation or prayer, you're taking that quiet time to recharge and to just replenish yourself with whatever it is that fills your cup, that silence, that space, taking out like all of maybe the thoughts that are going around in your mind. Journaling, if that helps, writing it all out, like whatever you're feeling for him, put it out on paper, because just let it go through you. Could be taking a salt bath, like literally there's some physical things like salt baths to detox and replenish your energy. Aging. If you have a sage smudge stick or a Palo Santo, and just lighting, saging yourself to really help to clear the energy and keep it moving. Sage whatever area in the house you might feel is draining, and maybe even saying a prayer and a blessing for him. while you're saging. And you could also do, if you feel like you're really connected, you could do a prayer to Archangel Michael for a cord cutting. Just say, this energy feels really intense. I'm asking maybe you can just, remove the cord of energy between myself and either a specific person or a situation. And if you don't feel like that works, just do it as many times as you need to repeat it until you feel like a little lighter, you feel like it has worked. You can also do something to change your mindset. So sometimes for people that's indulging in something creative, like they really just pour it into something like a drawing or painting, anything like that that turns you on. You could allow yourself to just Netflix and chill, wrap yourself up in a blanket with a hot cup of tea or whatever it is, and just let yourself feel, like cry it out for him, like allow you to release those feelings. Don't have to analyze them or anything. Just like say, I'm really sad for him right now. Like, I mean, this hurts. This breaks my heart for him, and I'm just feeling it with him, and I'm crying with him. And also too, you can sleep, like whatever your body's calling for. What is your body asking for right now? Is it sleep? Is it rest? Is it exercise? Is it a funny movie? Is it talking to a friend? Or is it just, giving your son a hug if he's near you and just saying, I'm here for you? Whatever it is that really speaks to you, allow your intuition to guide you. So I really encourage my clients to trust what they're feeling, trust what your soul is asking for. So that, as soon as we practice it, it seems strange. Like we'll ask, for coaching and advice, but eventually I'm coaching my people to trust here so that they can just know, this is what I need right now. This is what I need to manage my energy. If you're talking to someone, whether it's your son or someone you feel like is a big emotional situation, you might visualize yourself putting a cloak, an energetic cloak around you. I'm going to hold my energy within, and I am not available to absorb any energy, but I am here to hold beautiful space. Speak what you want, speak your intentions and what you want to see happen. What do you want to manifest? What's your desired outcome? And just speak that in an affirmation of some sort. I know this is a lot.
No, it's a really excellent advice, because it's something that I feel like all of us sometimes need to know how to do, whether it's through the loss of, with Marie, with her son losing his grandfather, and just feeling all of those emotions for him. And just as you were speaking to me, it's a feeling of being helpless, because as a parent, we always want to take our child's pain away. And when they're dealing with something like grief, you can't take that pain away. It's not a boo-boo that can be kissed better or anything like that. And so those were some really, really excellent tips to help her and hopefully help the other people on the live as well to be able to navigate some of those bigger emotions. I really appreciate that. That was excellent.
You're welcome. And I think it is so true. We want to take all that away. And what I've learned is now, recently, like this took me a long time, is that they just need someone to be there and say, yeah, what you're feeling is absolutely right on. This is so sad and horrible, and my heart's broken too.
Yeah. And one practice I started with my kids, and it was just in the past year, was when they're feeling something, to just look at them and say, I totally get that you're feeling X, Y, and Z, and I love you for feeling X, Y, and Z. You're safe to feel this with me. And wow, is that ever a game changer? Because my husband and I have been practicing it with each other, and literally practicing it where it doesn't even feel authentic at first because we're practicing saying the words, but then doing it with the kids, it helps them to just feel it and to release it. Because a lot of times we're just in resistance with what that emotion is that's coming up, because we've been told it's not okay to feel that way.
Right. Or either try to make it better, like, oh, it's okay, it's going to be okay, or we need to get over it, or let's heal, or let's fix it, or just calm down, it's going to be fine, whatever it is. Like, we try to discourage the feeling part and make it kind of just bypass it when that's how the shadow work starts. That's how, like, exactly how this begins, when we just don't allow ourselves to feel, whether it's our children or ourselves. We try to run away from the feelings, and they don't go away.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is when someone's feeling happy, we want them to be in that happy. Like, no, people don't say to people, oh, stop being so happy.
Sometimes I remember being younger and people going, are you on drugs? Like, if you're too happy, people like doubt it, or they like are cynical about it. Happy, what's wrong? Or, Or if you're too happy, the other shoe's gonna drop. Like, so just, you know, too happy because something's gonna happen to disappoint you. You know, I remember like that, hearing those things as a younger person. Like, there was like a happiness limit, and if you got went to joy and bliss, that was, oh my God. Like, just like, you know, people couldn't handle intense sadness and anger, I found adults around me couldn't handle the intense joy and bliss either. So we kind of had to stay in this bizarre, like, neutral. And
Interesting.
you know, it was just like, something must be wrong if you're too upset or if you're too happy. Something's wrong. Or, you know.
Right. So kind of like a spectrum. You've got to be in here. If you go above or below, it's like a Price is Right game.
Adults or a society's comfort zone. Like, if I went out skipping into the street because I was so blissful, people would be like, you know, like, I'm going to call the police. Like, seriously, we're so conditioned not to feel. And it's so bad. This is what happens. We end up doing shadow work. Like, this is our journey back to just being allowed to feel. I think especially as women. I mean, I was just binge watching Outlander for the last almost a week, going, yeah, remember those times when women couldn't even talk, like, never, let alone have any strong feelings. So this is a thing. Like, we've been kind of dealing with this for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And even just talking about women in general, a lot of women have been told for so long that their feelings are too much. They're too passionate about things. They feel things too much. If you get upset and start crying, then you might be labeled as a crazy bitch or whatever the case might be. But what I find when connecting with women and stuff is we just feel it really deeply. We feel it so greatly within our entire body. It's not just like, I'm pulling out the box of sadness right now. It's my entire being feels completely sad.
Yep, totally.
So Krista's saying, how do you release your own stress after everyone else has given you theirs? So I know kind of what's going on with Krista right now. So I know that she's got a lot of stress happening within her family unit. So how would you, I guess, advise someone to release their own stress when they're still trying to hold the family unit like that?
I think many of the practical tips that I gave before would probably still apply, like that energy management technique. So especially if she's around them, like lives with them or has to interact with them on a regular basis. So that means preparing yourself, you know, for when you're going to be, you know, you're going to be put in a situation where there's going to be intense energy or people that are speaking things over you that maybe are hurtful. The saging, maybe you want to carry some protective crystals with you. You might want to do the cord cutting prayers or the energetic cloak, like and declare, like, I am not available to absorb anyone's energy. I am only available to absorb energy that nurtures me. That's it. Like, I would even say it more in the positive. I am only available for energy that nurtures me. And then I would probably visualize, because we can't affect anyone else's journey. This is the thing. When we have people that are draining around us, we either have to learn to manage it or we have to distance ourselves. Like, those are kind of the two choices we have. And sometimes it comes to that. You know, I had a close relationship with a family member that it really got to be kind of a bit of a toxic point where I had to take some space for a while, just to be able to work on things. And you may need that if you can, you know, love from a distance for a little while until you feel like you've done your own self-work, because what they're doing is they're pushing a button within you. So they're almost like ripping off one of your Band-Aids and going and making your wound bleed again. So there's already a wound that you have. They're pushing your button. So back to the shadow work, this is where our shadow work comes in, and we look at that old wound and we face it, we deal with it, and we see how to process it, let it move through us, so that all of a sudden their bullshit doesn't bother us as much anymore. It's amazing how this happens, and it may sound simplistic, but it's amazing that when we really discover what's at the root, what are they triggering, like, within us that's really causing all this pain. And it's not to say we allow ourselves to be a doormat or we allow ourselves to get verbally abused or anything like that. You can put up some big fat boundaries, and if you feel uncomfortable with boundaries, definitely work with a coach or, you know, a spiritual advisor, whoever you trust, on that, or read their great books out there too on, you know, how to set boundaries, because you can absolutely say, you know what, I this conversation doesn't feel right to me. I really need to take some space. I'm going to take a walk. And if we want to change the energy in this conversation, I'm happy to come back to it. If not, maybe another time. Like we are totally empowered to say that. Like, no, like I'm not getting into this with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good to me without having to go into that battle of, like whole, yeah, right?
Yes. So it seems like Krista's struggle is everybody leaning on her and expecting her to be the tough one because she's always been the tough one.
Okay. So, in that case, I would visualize the outcome that I want for everybody else. So before you even see that, I wouldn't even tell them I'm doing it. I would just visualize, what would you want? If you had your ideal relationships with all of these people, what would that look like? What would you say to each other? What would you do? How would your conversations go? How would your next conversation go? And so that you are getting into a higher vibe space where you're not energetically available for them to lean on you. You're not necessarily saying no. I mean, boundaries probably could still help here, but at the same time, when there's something about an energy shift, when you shift your energy and you are and come back to a conversation or in a room with other people that previously drained you, they feel it. I don't know what it is, and it's hard to explain, and you can't really talk about it with them, but they feel it. For example, I had a client who was had a relationship with her mom, where her mom was really critical of her, and every conversation they had, she would leave feeling just terrible, like drained, or they'd fight, and she'd feel awful. So I we worked on this, some of the shadows, like where do these beliefs come from? Where do some of these painful situations come from? What wound is she pushing? And then visualizing, what if, let's visualize and manifest having a great conversation with her. Like, what if you went to her house, you had this beautiful conversation and she didn't criticize you at all? And just kind of starting with one little thing. Just doesn't have to be this complete transformation breakthrough. Maybe just one little thing. What if you just have this really nice conversation? And so I said, don't tell her, you're doing this. Don't walk in and say, hey, I'm doing this new spiritual thing. I'm going to manifest a good conversation between us. Even more, like, I'll come right at you. So yeah. Walked in, visualized it, walked in, and like something in her energy shifted so that day she had a really nice visit with her mom. It wasn't stressful. And in fact, her mom gave her a compliment, which was really like out of the realm at that point in time. So she was like, whoa. And she's like, I didn't even say anything to her. I just like walked in and just like we always do, but there was something in her energy. So it's how can you shift your energy to manifest a better relationship with your family so they are not looking to you to be that dumping ground or that overgiver or whatever it is. So a combination of energy management, boundaries, and then visualizing your ideal outcomes so that you shift your energy when you're around them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just want to add on to there too, because I was always the strong one in my family. And yes. And I started to realize that a lot of the story that I received when I was a child was I was actually more loved if I was the strong one. And so I became to be the person who was always strong, who didn't cry about things in front of everybody else, who didn't let the world affect me the same way it was with everybody else. And it was a really big step back. So it was about 1.5 years ago that I stepped back from being the strong one. And I actually ended up looking at my mom and saying to her, I don't want to be the strong one anymore. I'm okay to be weak. And she's like, oh, but you've never been weak. And I said, but there's been times where I needed to be. And it was that simple. And with that, I cried out some stuff. And it's funny the amount of strength I've actually felt in allowing myself to be weak since then. So I just wanted to share that as well.
That's amazing. It's so true. And it reminds me of the conversation that you and I were in with was it Dr. Shafali, who did a talk that we both saw, where she kind of said that. And in fact, I interviewed her last year on my Awakened Empath online show, and she had said something like this about empaths, that we kind of enable people to have those relationships with us, even as parents and kids too. Like, we allow them to drain us. We allow them to think that we're, the one who comes in and fixes it all. So it's up to us to put up that boundary and say, I'm not the strong one right now, and I'm okay with that. Or, I'm not able to do this for you this time,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I know it's such a hard transition, but we find that approval because that's the shadow. Like I find the validation or the approval, like you said, the love in being this person, whether it's the people pleaser, the strong one, the nice one. And it's amazing how we keep doing that.
Absolutely. And we step into these roles, even if we don't like the roles that we've assigned ourselves or we've stepped into. And then it's once you start to step back from the roles, and as you were talking before about how those relationships start to shift, when you start changing the conversation and even the vision of how you want that relationship to go, and you see it start to shift or you feel it start to shift, it's amazing how many people will step back if you're not being that person that they expected you to be anymore.
Right, right. They either step back. Sometimes they might come on a little stronger, but you'll. It's a matter of just practicing, and it's okay. Just practicing showing up as that, declaring who you really are, what your expectations are, what your needs are, and eventually it works. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a big one for so many people to learn. And I realize that you're helping a lot of people step into this kind of empowerment, because when you're at a space where you're constantly giving to everybody else or showing up for everybody else in such a way, and you start to lose yourself. And this is where I feel a lot of women get to be after years of having children and being in relationships and what their parents have told them and everything else, is they start to lose themselves in these really big ways. And then they don't even know behind all of these roles, they don't even realize that they're in roles in the first place. And then once they start to identify roles, then it's almost like having to break free of all of them to figure out, who am I beyond all of these roles that I've given myself or that others have placed on me.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's very, very common. And especially when children get older and they go off to college or they go off and they're adults and like, who am I really? Yeah. And I think that sometimes we even realize that before they get to that point, it's that unrest, that feeling of like, I love being a mom and I love all this and I should be really happy and grateful, but there's still a part of me that feels a little unfulfilled and we feel guilty about that. I think it's okay. Like, it's okay. It's just means like your soul is calling for something else to add to your life, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to be able to listen to your own callings and desires when you're a mom or when you're a wife or a partner,
Absolutely. I actually had this discussion with my husband last year, because I was dealing with a couple of different women in my life who were moms just like I was, and they were all looking for this fulfillment, and they were so in different stages of depression and unrest, I would say, because they just weren't feeling fulfilled. And they're like, I've got these kids and I thought my life was going to be different. I was going to feel more fulfilled. And I was like, it's the biggest line of bullshit that we have been taught as parents, that being a parent is the most fulfilling job in the world. Because a lot of times it's not. There is fulfilling moments, there is joyful moments, but there's a lot of hard work and there's a lot of growth that needs to happen both with the children and with the parents. The parents can have the disconnections with each other, with themselves, and all of this other sort of thing. And so us saying to women, or saying even to men, that your children are to fulfill you, I think starts to set out a moment of disconnection for people, because they think that the kids need to be this fulfillment. And that's such a huge responsibility to put onto any child's shoulders, that now you need to fulfill mom and dad's, What
a tremendous burden on them, for sure.
Yeah. And so to me, it's about finding the fulfillment outside of the kids, outside of what the life has been. Yeah, so we've just got some parents that are saying it's the hardest job ever and it's tough as shit. So we get it.
It is. Like, no one could prepare us for that. Because we were saying at the beginning of this, like, there are mirrors. Like, they come along and they're like, they pulled up the mirror to some of our shadows and some of our things that still need to be healed. I mean, all my kids do that for me. They all trigger me. And so, and I felt guilty about that for so long, because I had no idea that actually they were trying to expand me. They weren't trying to torture me. They were trying to actually help me to, like, okay, this needs to be seen. You need to work on this. It's like, oh, awesome. Hard work, but awesome. It's you know, it ends up being so freeing when we start to go down this road that's not meant to torture us. It's actually meant to empower us in the end. Though we might kick and scream along the way. But
Yep.
just a little bit.
But it is beautiful. It absolutely is beautiful. Once you work your way through whatever's being triggered for you and you get to the other side of that, it can create these beautiful, harmonious energies within you and with the child. And, you know, it's excellent.
It is. I mean, we would never trade it for the world. We love our children with all our heart and soul. But yeah, I mean, imagine, again, we're looking outside of us for that happiness, and then they're born, and that's not their job. You know, it's a lot to put on them. It's not their job to make us happy. And then we're like, shit, that didn't work. Like, so what? Like, we're still not acknowledging what's really at the core was that we were probably unhappy with some things before we had kids that we still didn't heal from. Or, you know, and so then we just kind of carried it hoping, okay, this will help me to now, you know, now I'll feel, you know, I'll feel that sense of satisfaction. This is what I'm supposed to do. And then it's not always that way. For some it is. For some it is the absolute, like, complete soul's calling. And I think that's amazing. But for some women, it's not. It's parenting. It might be something else. And that's okay too. So.
Exactly. It comes back to whatever you feel to be in your highest alignment. And whether that's parenting or doing the work that you're doing or writing a book or going around the world, it doesn't matter. It's all about what does your soul actually want.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Jen, for joining me here tonight. If anybody is wanting to connect with Jen, your Facebook page is?
Jennifer Roopenian. That's my name. You can find me there.
Okay.
Facebook group is the Awakened Empath. Yeah.
And your website, I'm just putting it in the comments here. It's jenroopenian.com. And if you guys go to that, there is a free 5-day manifesting energy report.
The 5-day manifestation challenge. So you put your name and email in, and then over the next 5 days, you'll get 1 video per day. And I walk you through steps to manifest whatever it is that you want, you know, so it's really helpful and it makes it super simple. That's my other superpower, is trying to keep this whole spiritual awakening journey extremely simple. It doesn't have to be complicated, you know, so it's great. And also I'll mention if they wanted to look at my different readings and such, it's soulalignedreadings.com.
Get that written down too. Soulalignedreadings.com.
Yeah. So until this whole pandemic thing is over, I do have an $11 reading special. So anyone that's a 6-card reading, and I email you an audio recording of it. So because I know everybody or a lot of people are really struggling, you know, financially right now, but are still looking for guidance as well. So that's one thing I have, you know, to offer your lovely.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jen. It was a pleasure as always to chat with you, and I absolutely love your points of view. So thank you for joining us. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Stop live stream.